Hello and welcome to the World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July debate on plastic pollution. My name is Jessie Leonce, Information Assistant at the Department of Sustainable Development. A special welcome to our studio audience, as well as those of you watching us in TV land, as well as online via the Government of St. Lucia Facebook page. We have two teams here today. They will be debating, arguing on the topic, beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We recognize the readiness, the timeliness, of this topic, as the Department of Sustainable Development is currently pursuing a marine litter management action plan in collaboration with the St. Lucia Solid Waste Management Authority, supported by the United Nations Environment Program. The project involves the development of a national source inventory and NSI on plastic pollution and marine litter, and the Marine Litter Management Action Plan, MLMAP. This project involves the development of a national source inventory, NSI. Key objectives of this initiative, that I mentioned earlier, include improved data knowledge and evidence on the sources, pathways, and impacts of plastic pollution, enhanced understanding and of the quantities and composition of marine litter and plastic pollution in St. Lucia, improved coordination and cooperation among people at all levels working to address plastic pollution, improved unity between national policies on waste management, marine litter and plastic management, and to get a better understanding of the opportunities there are to enhance teamwork when implementing marine litter and plastic reduction opportunities and activities. Following a highly successful meeting, a consultation held in April, as well as a high-level meeting held just last week, an emerging marine litter management action plan currently has 5 pillars, one of which is the cleanup campaigns. And many St. Lucians by now would be familiar with these types of activities. Many organizations island-wide undertake these in an effort to reduce the negative impacts. And with this in mind, we are exploring the efficacy of beach and coastal cleanups, recognizing that such initiatives are often pursued among many groups and CSOs, as I indicated, in an effort to address marine pollution. On the proposing side of the debate today, we have Island Innovation Ambassadors, and they are represented by Ms. Gillian Polius and Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander. And the opposing team today is the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, represented by Mr. Jaden LeBrun, Mr. Rinkish King, and Mr. Rusley Velinor. We are honored to also have 3 esteemed judges with us today, namely Ms. Marva Hippolyte of the Solid Waste Management Authority and Dr. Marie-Louise Felix of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, as well as Ms. Janelle Volney, Sustainable Development and Environment Officer within the Department of Sustainable Development. Our timekeeper today will be Ms. Shanna Scott, joining us, supporting us from the National Ozone Unit within our department. The debate will consist of 2 rounds of opening statements, followed by a break and a closing with the rebuttals. As is customary, we now invite the proposing team up to the podium. Well, before we get to that, I just want to say all the best to both teams. And at this time, I call to the podium first to deliver their opening statement, Ms. Gillian Polius.
Madam Chairperson, impartial arbitrators, my esteemed colleague, distinguished personalities of the gathering, viewers, national and across the diaspora, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I stand here today determined and resolute to advance cogent and succinct arguments with the expression intention to convince you that beach coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. First, I would like to set your thinking with a quote from an American educator, Charles Moore, who said, "Only humans make waste that nature cannot digest." Madam Chairperson, In order to give meaning and expression and strengthen the authenticity of our argument, it is vital that the keywords of the subject matter being debated are defined. The noun beach, according to the online Advanced Oxford Learners Dictionary, is defined as a pebble, a sandy shore, especially by the ocean between high and low water marks. The adjective coastal derives from the noun coast, means of a near or a coast in a coastal erosion as defined by the same dictionary. In the same dictionary word, coast means the part of the land near the sea, the edge, and the land exemplifies as in the west coast of St. Lucia. The adjective ineffective, according to the World Wide Web, Merriam-Webster.com, does not produce an intended, decided, decisive, or desired effect. The fight, as defined by the Webster Dictionary, means to put forth and determine effort or manner. Plastic pollution, defined by the World Wide Web, Britannica.com, means an accumulation of the environmental of synthetic plastic products to the point that they create problems for the wildlife, the ocean, and their habitats, as well as humans and their environments. Madam Chair, the topic reinstated from the definitions, which sums up to our perspective as the members of the proposition and represent an unwilling position, is that cleanups along a pebble or a sandy shore, especially by the ocean between high and low water marks or near a coast as the coast of St. Lucia, are not producing decided, decisive, or a desired effect in determining efforts to address the accumulation in the environment of synthetic plastic products to the point that they create problems for wildlife, the ocean, the inhabitants, as well as humans and the environment. Plastic waste is now found in most remote areas of the planet. It kills marine life and doing major harm to the communities that depend on fishing and tourism. Madam Chair, I will examine the economies and historical perspectives of plastic, while my second will focus on the fundamental problems of plastic, all in our collective approach to articulate the underlying issues that lead to the inescapable conclusion that beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective to fight and address plastic pollution. Madam Chair, English Alexander Parks' works in 1862 paved a way for a young inventor from New York by the name of John Wesley Hyatt, November 28, 1857 to May 10, 1920, was an American inventor and industrialist who discovered that the process of making celluloid, the first practical artificial plastic, which was patented in 1869 under the name of celluloid. Celluloid has a global significant economic impact as it immediately began to be used for a variety of purposes. Madam Chair, let us examine the myriad of practical uses and applications of plastics in our everyday lives. George Eastman, in 1889, introduced transparent, flexible film made from cellulose. That, Madam Chair, changed the highly specialized trade of photography into an everyday affair for the general public. Madam Chair, in 1937, the Society of the Plastic Industry, a trade association, was formed to broker fair practices, develop standards, monitor statistical trends, and serve as an industrial liaison with governments. Madam Chair, in 1935, Wallace Cotter and Julian Hill, researchers of the DuPont Company, developed nylon as a substitute for silk. Today, nylon is used in hundreds of applications, from electronic connectors, automobile oil plants, fabric, carpeting, and sports equipment. Madam Chair, in 1938, while trying to create a new refrigerant, Roy J. Plunkett, a DuPont chemist, discovered PTFE, what is known as fluoropolymers, which became one of the most valuable, versatile technologies ever invented, contributing to advancements in aerospace, communications, and electronics. Madam Chair, the 1950s brought the introduction of polypropylene and developed an acetal and polycarbonate. This outstanding impact strengthened the stability of this engineering and enabled them to compete directly and favorably with metal in many applications, including fiberglass, body material used in cars, plastic chairs, and space, etc. Madam Chair, in the 1960s, plastic surpassed aluminum to become one of the largest industries in the USA. Madam Chair, in the 1970s, the industry continued to innovate. Polypet was developed for beverage containers that can withstand the pressure of carbonated liquids. Madam Chair, in the 1980s, the explosion of the consumer electronics was not at all be possible without plastic. For illustration and housing computer chips, circuit boards, and compact discs, high-performance plastic provided touch-dimensional stable parts and could withstand stress of assembly and the strain of its use. Madam Chair, the concept of the sustainability and already been revolutionized the plastic industry as innovations in recycling, energy efficiency, and environmental conscious designs are merging to meet societal demands along cost-efficient lines. The experts tell us that the possibility of expanding roles of plastic throughout the rest of the 21st century are unlimited, including nanotech and medical applications. Madam Chair, the information was sourced from the Plastics and Science History. Madam Chair, it is an impeccable reality that our culture and our way of life depends on single use of plastics. Our learned friends opposite will tell you that a good amount of plastic waste does not make it to the recycle center or even the landfill. This plastic is carried by the river and wind, and animals can find its way to the sea, and sadly it does. In conclusion, Madam Chair, a collaboration of approaches outlined above with a strengthening already established and enforcements and necessary regulations of the Styrofoam Plastic Food Service Containers Prohibited Act No. 22 of 2019 and the Styrofoam and Plastic Food Service Containers Prohibition Amendment Act No. 8 of 2020. We will do, Madam Chair, what we will do, Madam Chair, is seriously restrict plastic, especially single-use plastic, in making its way to the coastal areas through waterways and other means. In this way, Madam Chair, we will not have and rely primarily on the beach coastal cleanups, which are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. I leave you with this statement from Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the UN, that has stated, if present trends continue, by 2050, our oceans will have more plastic than fish. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gillian Polius, batting first in our debate here today. If you are just joining the broadcast, good day to you. This is a debate led by World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July organizers, a debate on plastic pollution. And the topic is beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We had the proponent, the first proposing today from Innovative Island Ambassadors, Gillian Polius, and we will now move on to the opposing team. The first presenter, Mr. Jaden LeBrun. All the best, sir.
Stop. This debate needs to be terminated immediately. For I refuse to live a future where waves of plastic crash into coast covered with covers. A future where our plastic debris is the main form of casualty for our endangered species. A future where our landfills are full while an entire continent of plastic forms. for the sake of our youth, for the sake of our future, my colleagues and I have come to robustly reject the notion that beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. Madam Moderator, debate officials, members of the proposition, our online and in-person audience, I would like to wish you all a good day. Before I begin, permit me to define one word that I believe commands this entire debate. Effective, as defined in the Oxford's Learner's Dictionary, means producing the result that is wanted or intended. So, Madam Moderator, are we to believe this fabricated statement that beach and coastal cleanups haven't produced the intended result of reducing the amount of plastics in our ecosystems? Surely not. That argument will easily be broken down. Unlike the plastic waste my proponents here believe shouldn't be cleaned up. No, beach and coastal cleanups are effective in the fight to address plastic pollution, and I devised 3 main points to demonstrate why. 1. Beach and coastal cleanups have resulted in a significant reduction in the total amount of plastic within our environment. 2. Beach and coastal cleanups have indirect effects which ultimately mitigates the plastic pollution problem. 3. Beach and coastal cleanups are meant to fight in collaboration with alternative preservative practices to effectively address the plastic pollution problem. First, let's start off with some statistics, shall we? Volunteers of the Blue Ocean Society for Marine Conservation collected nearly 17,000 pounds of litter between cleanups of the 2 years, 2019 and 2021. A crushing weight of about 2 adult African elephants. But that's just one group. What about larger ones, like the Surf Rider Foundation? In 2019 alone, their volunteers amassed a magnitude of nearly 300,000 pounds of trash, a jaw-dropping metric of the combined weight of 3 adult sperm whales. But that was just 1 year. Through the efforts of over 30 years spent practicing beach cleanups, the Ocean Conservancy Organization has gathered a staggering 348 million pounds of litter. To put that weight into perspective, that is like taking the entire population of St. Lucia and scaling it by a magnitude of 5. To have the audacity to stand here and accuse beach cleanups as ineffective is not only inaccurate, but a slap in the face to these multinational environmental groups whose collective efforts work towards the mass removal of plastic from our environment. They have faith in beach and coastal cleanups. Why shouldn't we? My proponents argue, well, because our actions are too small to make a difference. But that is because they only see the tip of the iceberg. They fail to see that beach cleanups don't stop at the coastlines. Which leads me to my second point. Beach and coastal cleanups indirectly mitigate the plastic pollution problem. For instance, the data collection benefits they provide are certainly crucial, and my colleague here will gladly elaborate on that point. Another invaluable indirect asset they provide is through sterilization of the plastic pollution problem. Beach cleanups bring people face to face with the reality of plastic pollution. Many people are unlikely to change their behavior until they understand the scope of the plastic pollution problem and see the impact it has on the environment. To many people, plastic, especially single-use plastics, is an out of sight, out of mind problem. Once it is in the bin, it's no longer their concern. But all that waste has to go somewhere, since it doesn't biodegrade, and it often ends up in the ocean and subsequently ends up washing up on shore. By organizing a beach cleanup, volunteers are able to physically see the quantity of plastic littering the beach and have a greater understanding of the effort required to remove plastic from the marine system, having had to pick up the trash themselves. But don't just take my word for it. Laura Lever, a marine biologist at the Alfred Wegener Institute, stated that, and I quote, "It makes people think about plastic trash by changing the way they perceive it. We will make a difference," end quote. After examining multiple studies, National Geographic claimed that, and I quote, "Beach cleanups raise public awareness to the threat of plastic debris more effectively than in less participatory public education programs," end quote. They also stated, and I quote once more, "Volunteers say the cleanups make them more mindful of how they dispose of their own disposables," end quote. And when posed with the question, do beach cleanups really make a difference? The Sentinel Ocean Alliance had this to say, and I quote once more, "Yes, they do. Beach cleanups are important mitigation tools that can help create an understanding of the problem and encourage people to engage in solutions," end quote. It saddens me to say, Madam Moderator, that the proposition will undoubtedly turn a blind eye to these testimonies, as it is these very sources that plead us to see the effectiveness of beach cleanups. They plead us to see past the coastline. They plead us to see beyond the proposition. It's time we open our eyes and see the importance of beach and coastal cleanups. And to see the importance of these cleanups, we don't even have to look very far. We can appreciate their importance in our very own households. What happens when you forget to clean the bathroom, fail to sweep the house, or let the dishes pile up until night? Will the garbage throw itself? No. By not cleaning up after ourselves, we've only made matters worse, leaving us in dirty homes. By engaging in routine chores, or in this case, beach and coastal cleanups, we can automatically see how our living conditions will improve. But beach and coastal cleanups is just one of the many essential chores that are needed to combat plastic pollution. This brings me to my third and final point. Beach and coastal cleanups are even more effective when practiced alongside alternative preservative practices. By working with coastal cleanups instead of against them, we can fully appreciate their potential. Instead of confining beach and coastal cleanups as part of the problem, we should be combining other preservative practices with these cleanups so that we can most effectively fight plastic pollution. Why has our proposition isolated beach and coastal cleanups as though they are somehow part of the pollution? Why, beach and coastal cleanups are simply another part of the solution. It is through these 3 points I have articulated clearly why beach and coastal cleanups are an essential tool to be utilized with our tool belt of preservative practices in addressing plastic pollution both directly and indirectly. Before I leave, however, allow me to reiterate our very critical definition. Effective is defined as producing the result that is wanted or intended. And the statistics show, the people see, and the methods certify that beach and coastal cleanups are effective in the fight to address plastic pollution. For our friends here to say otherwise would not only be a direct contradiction to this definition, but a massive understatement. An understatement that our planet can't afford to undertake. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jaden LeBron, the first on the opposing side. We are talking beach and coastal cleanups. Are they effective? Are they ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution? On the topic, we just want to let the public know, for those of you viewing via TV Land and also the Facebook page, we have just gone through the first on the proposing team and the first on the opposing team on the topic beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. And this is a debate on plastic pollution, an event organized by the persons behind World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July at the Department of Sustainable Development. If you're just joining, welcome to you. We want to continue with the debate, now bringing on the proposing side with the second opening statement Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander.
Madam Chair, our illustrious panel of arbiters, my esteemed colleague, my learned friends opposite, distinguished personalities of the gathering, viewers nationally and across the diaspora, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here today filled with vigor and enthusiasm as I give my full support to my team leader in our relentless pursuit to convince you all that beach and coastal cleanups are not effective in fighting the issues related to plastic pollution. The plastic problem, as stated, Madam Chair, plastic is a polymetric material, that is a material whose molecules are very large, often resembling long chains made up of seemingly endless series of interconnected links. Natural polymers, such as rubber and silk, exist in abundance, but nature's plastics have not been implicated in environmental pollution, according to the experts, because they do not persist in the environment. It is man-made plastics that is the fundamental root of the plastic problem. And this is the core of what we are going to address today. Madam Chair, today, however, the average consumer comes into daily contact with all kinds of plastic materials that have been developed specifically to defeat natural decay processes. Materials derived mainly from petroleum that can be molded, cast, spun, or applied as a coating. Since synthetic plastics are largely non-biodegradable, they tend to persist in our natural environment, causing a host of environmental problems. Madam Chair, indeed, landscapes littered by plastic packaging have become common in many parts of the world, including our fair Helen. Illegal dumping of plastics and overflowing the containment structures also play a critical role. Madam Chair, at the crux of the matter, at the heart of the plastic problem and debate, is human action. And that has triggered a vast cascade of environmental problems, which has threatened and continues to threaten the ability of both natural and human systems to flourish. So therefore, solving the critical environmental problems of global warming, water scarcity, pollution, particularly plastic pollution and biodiversity loss, are perhaps the greatest challenges into the 21st century, as environmental experts have listed. Madam Chair, therefore, we need more programs to help influence and change positive human behavior in order to fight the issues of plastics. Madam Chair, since the ocean is downstream from nearly every terrestrial location, it is the receiving body for much of the plastic waste generated on land. The downstream impact of our ocean is being captured in our French Creole in an expression we say, toute la rivière qu'a descend à la mer. Madam Chair, several million tons of debris end up in the world's ocean every year, including our beautiful Caribbean Sea, which washes the shore of our fair Helen St. Lucia. And much of it is improperly discarded plastic litter. The first oceanographic study to examine the amount of near-surface plastic debris in the world's ocean was published in 2014. It is estimated that at least 5.25 trillion individual plastic particles weighing nearly 240,000 metric tons, 260,000 short tons were floating on or near shore surfaces. Where did this plastic come from that causes the whole issue that we have to clean up? It is inland, and this is the source of the problem that we have to address. Madam Chair, statistics from www.rotary.org informs us that 8.8 million tons of plastic waste ends up in the ocean every year. Madam Chair, The World Bank Group is committed to supporting diversification of the Eastern Caribbean countries and contributing to regional efforts that generate jobs and build resistance. Madam Chair, currently, the World Bank is working with the Eastern Caribbean countries to prepare a regional investment project unleashing the blue economy of the Eastern Caribbean, UBECC. The proposed project will aim at enhancing tourism, fisheries, and aquaculture, and waste management, of which plastic is a critical component. These efforts are expected to boost economic recovery, help create jobs, and reduce marine pollution. Both the CROP and the ECCB are part of the World Bank Global 5.561 billion blue economy portfolio, with more and more countries looking to economic growth, stability, and the marine and coastal resources. So this is even more critical since we depend on tourism, that we have to ensure that the root cause of plastic, which is land-based, doesn't end up at our seas, so that we're not repeating the cycles of beach cleanups continuously, which is proven to be largely ineffective, though important. Madam Chair, the paradigm shift from small island economy states to large ocean developing states has started with the blue economy at the epicenter of sustainable wealth creation in the Eastern Caribbean. Madam Chair, marine pollution is a threat to the regional resilience, climate change, and to its economy, particularly for countries in the Caribbean and Central America. Marine ecosystems provide a vital source of food and livelihoods for many Latin American and Caribbean countries through fisheries, tourism, shipping, aquaculture, ports, and energy. And the source of that information is a World Bank publication of 2019 on addressing marine plastics in Latin America and the Caribbean. Madam Chair, marine pollution in the form of plastic, sewage, chemicals, and other byproducts pose a risk to fisheries and tourism on which many Caribbean countries depend. Fisheries are a key source of employment, income, and food security to our region. Madam Chair, plastic litter also impacts the region in terms of public health by playing host to mosquitoes, diseases like dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. Madam Chair, recognizing the importance of combating marine pollution and leveraging the blue economy for climate resilience and poverty reduction, countries around the world are taking action. Many, including St. Lucia, have banned styrofoam and other types of single-use plastics, and the World Bank has supported this kind of reforms through development policy lending. Madam Chair, this is more of the kind of concrete action and enforcement policies needed, and not merely the token and inadequate approach such as beach and coastal cleanups, which are not effective in addressing the issues of plastic-related pollution. Madam Chair, improving ocean governance and planning can help alleviate and increase marine and coastal pollution associated with overdue and rapid development. A forthcoming project on the preparation unleashing the blue economy in the Eastern Caribbean will build on the foundations to strengthen management and resilience of marine and coastal assets to help these countries like ours in their ambition to move from being small island developing states to large ocean states. Madam Chair, plastic also pollutes through the release of compounds used in its manufacture. Some compounds used in the plastics, such as bisphenol A, BPA, polybrominate, and others, come under close scrutiny and regulation. Indeed, pollution of the environment by chemicals leaching through plastics into the air and water is an emerging area for concern as well. Madam Chair, marine pollution is not only an environmental issue, it is an economic and social priority. Most of the people in small island developing states within a 10-kilometer of the ocean and are therefore particularly vulnerable to gastrointestinal diseases related to untreated waste and viruses from mosquitoes that inhabit moist pocket areas. Madam Chair, the good news is that considerable progress has been made on the global and regional level to tackle marine pollution, and we want to make it clear that some of the issues, or the solutions rather, include strengthening systematic and strategic monitoring on data of the marine pollutants, prioritizing increased funding for national budgets for marine pollution prevention, and make the strategic commitment to control waste. This means stopping the overflow of waste into oceans by scaling up investments in waste management systems and supply chain.
Must indicate
On
that
that note, Madam Chair, honorable judges, as I conclude, I have provided you with sufficient information to fully support our position that coastal cleanups and coastal and beach cleanups are not effective in addressing the issues related to plastic pollution. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Andrew Ricky Alexander. There, the second on the proposing side, making a case for beach and coastal cleanups being ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. And to round up this round in our debate for this afternoon, World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July debate on plastic pollution, we next have on the opposing side from CYEN, that is the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, Mr. Rinkish King. All the best.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. A quote by Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, and one which I think holds significant relevance in today's debate. That first step is one of the most important steps along a journey of 1,000 miles. In the same regard, beach and coastal cleanups, which have a small impact when looked at upon a greater scale, can be likened to the raindrop which washes away a mountain, or the slave who builds a pyramid. Beach and coastal cleanups, when done consistently, have been proven to be important and effective in the fight to address plastic pollution. Madam Moderator, debate officials, members of the proposition, our online and in-person audience, I bid you good day. As previously stated by my colleague, our mission here today is to challenge the moot and to prove that beach and coastal cleanups are effective in the fight to address plastic pollution. As such, I will try to convince you with 3 points. 1. Beach and coastal cleanups are effective in addressing plastic pollution through the use of data collection by cleanup volunteers. 2. Beach and coastal cleanups are effective and essential towards reducing plastic pollution, which can be detrimental to the health of our oceans and marine species. 3. Beach and coastal cleanups protect and preserve our environment. It is our civic responsibility to organize and engage in them. According to the National Geographic, and I quote, "The numbers are staggering. There are 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic debris in the ocean as of 2022. Madam Moderator, 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic debris. Of that mass, 269,000 tons float on the surface, while some 4 billion plastic microfibers per square kilometer litter the deep sea." End quote. The most common items which constitute this 5.25 trillion pieces of plastic debris include cigarette butts, food wrappers, beverage bottles, straws, cups and plates, bottle caps, and single-use bags. Beach cleanups can be attributed to helping us collect some of this vital information. Beach and coastal cleanups help us gather valuable data on what items are polluting the ocean, and with that, we can have targeted messaging to reduce pollution. This data is collected by cleanup volunteers who are referred to as community scientists. This collected data can be used to influence decisions about our public spaces, drinking water, and environment by recording exactly what types and how much litter is found on beaches. Volunteers help scientists study sources of pollution and help policymakers develop new programs and policies. Madam Moderator, with the amount of plastic waste that ends up in our beaches, it is imperative to address plastic pollution from the stem. In doing so, beach and coastal cleanups are effectively providing the needed data to assess where the pollutants are originating from, and with that, we can attack the problem from the source. What about our marine ecosystems? Let me reiterate, as stated by my colleague, through the efforts of over 30 years spent practicing beach cleanups, the Ocean Conservancy Organization has gathered a staggering 348 million pounds of litter. Why is this important, you may ask? Because beach cleanups protect our aquatic ecosystems from the harmful effects of pollution. Take noodles, for examples. Noodles are little plastic pellets used in plastic production. Noodles are tiny to the naked eye, but can be devastating to aquatic ecosystems. Why? Because large amounts of noodles can make their way into our water systems, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Near manufacturing sites, the number of noodles found in bays can be as much as 30,000. 30,000. According to the Center for Biological Diversity, and I quote, thousands of seabirds and sea turtles, seals, and other marine mammals are killed each year after ingesting plastic or getting entangled in it. Endangered wildlife, like Hawaiian monk seals and Pacific loggerhead sea turtles, are among nearly 700 species that eat and get caught in plastic litter. End quote. Madam Moderator, imagine what it is like to choke to death or be choked to death. This is what our marine species have to go through because of the plastic litter that we put in our oceans, whereas we can just clean it up through beach cleanups. To illustrate the truly devastating impact that plastic pollution has on our marine ecosystems, let me present you with a few ocean plastic statistics. More than 1 million seabirds and 100,000 marine animals die from plastic pollution every year. 100% of baby sea turtles have plastic in their stomachs. Not 98%, not 99%, 100%. 88% of the sea surface is polluted by plastic waste. 1 in 3 fish caught for human consumption contains plastic. Madam Moderator, that is the food we eat. Even here in St. Lucia, we have things like Ancillary Fish Friday and Grosile Friday night, where fish is one of the main foods eaten. So imagine that 1 in 3 fish you eat contain plastic. Should this not encourage us, as the guardians of our planet and the prime culprits for the impending destruction of our marine ecosystems, to make some kind of effort towards removing some of that plastic from our beaches? Yes, it should, and it is our civic responsibility to do so. Plastic pollution is a global societal concern due to its potential to cause ecological and socio-economic harm. As such, it should be the responsibility of those who produce and use the plastics, companies, to organize beach cleanups as their corporate responsibility to the environment, which helps to sustain their businesses. It is also the responsibility of citizens to organize and engage in beach cleanups in order to protect and preserve the environment that we live in. Madam Moderator, members of the audience, bear with me for a second. Bear with me and imagine for a second. What happens when even a small stone is dropped into a large pool of water? It leaves ripples. and that in itself can be directly compared with the effect of beach cleanups. It leaves ripples. By encouraging others to engage in beach cleanups, cleaning, protecting, and preserving our environment, and showing Mother Earth that we care. So please, I implore you all, do not be swayed by the misguided words of our opposition. Take that first step, because no matter how insignificant they seem, beach cleanups are effective. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Rinkish King, the second on the opposition to oppose the topic, beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We have just gone through the first round. All of our four debaters have spoken. They have made their presentations on this topic. We thank you all. The judges are now reviewing their notes at this time. If you are online watching, you are on television watching, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. If you're just joining, we are midway through our debate on plastic pollution. I just mentioned the topic. It's an activity that is being put on by organizers of World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July here in St. Lucia from the Department of Sustainable Development. Up next, we have the rebuttals to be presented by the proposing and opposing team, and that will be made by Andrew Ricky Alexander from the proposition, and the opposition, that presentation will be made by Mr. Rusley Velinor. So that is coming up in just a moment. We invite you to stay tuned and take a look at a few public service announcements for a few minutes until we come back for the rebuttals. The topic: beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We just heard from Gillian Polius, Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander on the proposition. We heard from Mr. Jaden LeBron and Mr. Rinkish King on the opposition, making their cases on their opposing ends. So do stay tuned for the rebuttal and more coming up after this break.
If we are to tackle plastic pollution, everyone must do their part, especially you.
How?
By being a sustainable consumer and remembering the 7 R's to beat plastic pollution.
Rethink.
Before your next purchase, take some time to think of the effects of plastic on your health, the environment, and your future.
Reuse, repair, and recycle.
Can I reuse this? This is a powerful step. When you reuse and recycle plastics, you reduce the demand and production of plastic products. So remember, reuse what you can and recycle what's left.
Replace.
You have the power. Where possible, you can demand that the supplier provide non-plastic and environmentally safe alternatives to plastic. It's your right as a consumer.
Refuse and reduce.
So, the next time you are offered a plastic fork, spoon, or plate, politely refuse it. Over time, we will reduce the amount of unnecessary plastics in our precious environment. Remember, if you don't need it, refuse it. If you do need it, reduce it.
So, what am I doing to break my plastic habits? Come, let me show you. When I go shopping, I use my reusable shopping bag. When I buy food to eat, I use my reusable container. Water, juice, I have my reusable bottle. And straws, I don't use them because I have my reusable straw.
Plastic pollution is hurting the environment, so let's beat it together.
Share what you have learned with friends and family. It's time to take action. You have the power. Are you a sustainable consumer?
Monsieur, they're really dirty. That cannot be healthy.
Of course not, Gasser. Plastics are very bad for our environment. Look at this river, for example. It was once home to a number of different animals. It can take hundreds or even thousands of years for plastic to break down. And even when they break down, they do not disappear. Microplastics are tiny plastic particles that result from the breakdown of larger plastics. Microplastics can be harmful to animals and human health, especially since they contaminate our water supply and we end up consuming them when we eat fish that have fed on these tiny bits of plastic. To make matters worse, they are extremely difficult to remove from the water body. You know, people throw all kinds of things in the bush, gutters, and ravines that end up in the rivers and the sea. Not only plastic, but glass, metal, old appliances like stoves, and even old cars. Out of sight, out of mind. Until the rains come and the gutters get blocked and the place floods, water in people's houses and shops and all over the road.
We in the same class, Castle. I know all of that. Tell me something I don't know.
Irie, what's the ML map?
El Malkisa?
It's the Marine Litter Management Action Plan.
Where you get that from, partner? I never heard of that.
My mother works at the Department of Sustainable Development. She told me that the ML map is an action plan for St. Lucia, which is meant to improve data, knowledge, and evidence on the sources, pathways, and impacts of plastic pollution, enhance understanding of the quantities and composition of marine litter and plastic pollution in St. Lucia, improve coordination and cooperation among people at all levels working to address plastic pollution, and finally to improve unity between national policies on waste management, marine litter, and plastic management, and to get a better understanding of the opportunities there are to enhance teamwork when implementing marine litter and plastic reduction projects and activities.
Oh, now I understand. It sounds like we will all have to work together to make the plan work. Not just the government, but also business places, the vendors, the bus drivers, the school children. But wow, I'd really want to go for a river bath today.
For more information, contact the Department of Sustainable Development. Telephone 468-5833.
And we are back live on NTN and the Government of St. Lucia Facebook page, bringing you the World Oceans Day and Plastic Free July plastic pollution debate. We have on topic beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. And we just went through a round of debate with the proposition being the Island Innovation Ambassadors and the opposition, the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, going over this topic, back and forth on this topic with their two presenters each. At this juncture, we now want to call on the proposing side, Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander, and he will be rebutting the presentations made by the opposition. Mr. Alexander.
Madam Chair, our dispassionate panel of judges, esteemed colleagues, my learned friends opposite, illustrious personalities of the gathering, viewers nationally and across the diaspora, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, those were the points of the opposition. Rubbish. Utter rubbish. And some people will be tempted to go further to call it garbage. Madam Chair, we remain unwavering in our strategic and philosophical posture that beach cleanups and coastal cleanups are not effective in addressing a fight against plastic pollution. In our collective approach, we advance our position, Madam Chair, honorable judges. You will concur with us that we on the proposition side have provided sound, cogent, and logical appeals in our arguments to substantiate our viewpoint and to remove the cataract that is blinding the eyes of our learned friends opposite. Madam Chair, the opposition seems bent on the ill-conceived suppositions that beach and coastal cleanups are producing the desired and intended result in addressing the issues relating to plastic pollution. Some may venture to say that this preposterous perspective is one that they should not adopt, and you all may very well agree with us in that regard. For us, Madam Chair, we remain firmly rooted and grounded in reality, unlike those opposite, and this is why we fundamentally differ from the counter-arguments advanced by the friends opposite. Madam Chair, we have provided statistics and other numerous sources of information and data to prove our argument and our point that beach cleanup is not effective in addressing the issues of pollution. Our friends opposite, the leader of the opposition, referred to the mute as fabricated. We believe that it is his presentation and that of his colleague that is fabricated, Madam Chair, because they did not, in our view, provide conclusive and solid evidence to make their points. He went further to say that beach cleanups are important mitigation tools. We both concur. They are important mitigation tools, but they do not address the root source of the problem. The bulk of plastic pollution is land-based, and it ends up at the sea in the coastal area. So why is it that we have continuous coastal cleanups over and year after year if we are not addressing the root source of the plastic pollutions? The seconder said that it is imperative to address plastic pollution from the source. So they're actually agreeing with us that the source is not in the coastal areas, that the source is really at the root. It's land-based. And we have provided all the evidence to suggest and to prove that point. Okay? We have provided irrefutable evidence to denote that the average consumer comes into daily contact with all kinds of plastic, which is at the root source, which is land-based, that landscapes littered by plastic in packages have become uncommon parts in many parts of the world, including our fair Helen. Our team addressed the critical paradigm shift from small island developing states to ocean-large developing states, where tourism and the impact of the coastal areas are being affected, and it affects our tourism. We pointed out and dealt with our responsibility in a very serious manner with facts and evidence to support our position. We move further to strengthen systematic and strategic monitoring. These are the key points that we outlined for marine pollutants, and set up economic impacts in assessing and quantifying the costs associated with marine pollution. We spoke about prioritizing increased funding for national budgets so that we can actually address marine pollution from the source, the land base. Education, awareness, and sensitization were all the points that we address. Now, Madam Chair, as I conclude, again, we provided sound and irrefutable arguments to prove our case, while the opposition presented weak, unsubstantiated, and ludicrous, and in their own words, fabricated arguments. And perhaps the arguments can best be summed up as an intoxicated person using a lamppost for support rather than for illumination. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alexander. Right on that second. And we move along expeditiously to our next presenter for the rebuttal on the opposing side, Caribbean Youth Environment Network, Mr. Rusley Velinor. And just to note, this is his first presentation in this sitting. He is coming in just to make the rebuttal.
Good afternoon, Madam Moderator, ladies and gentlemen. My task here is simple. Madam Moderator, on a serious note, how can we, as mentally stable humans, turn our backs and leave plastic on the beach? How can we turn our backs on the marine environment? How can we turn our backs on the leatherback turtles, which are on the verge of extinction? How do we tell our younger generation that it's okay to have garbage on our shores? Madam Moderator, I pack up on you. I don't understand them. Beach cleanups don't stop at coastlines. The act is instilled in us, especially our younger generations. That by coming together to understand the problem and engaging in solutions, the act of proper disposal of trash will automatically be instilled within us. Madam Moderator, let us not be myopic to the facts that beach cleanups provide the necessary data to mitigate pollution. Tons of plastic are being recycled from coastal deposits instead of being the leading cause of marine casualty. Madam Moderator, my opponents here declared that the majority of plastic find their way to the ocean instead of the landfills. So what now? Exactly. Let's help the situation and simply clean the beaches. I echo my seconder. Don't be misguided by the words of our opposition. Remember, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a simple step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Velinor. Rusley Velinor making his first and only presentation in this sitting on this debate on plastic pollution. The topic is beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. And we have just heard the rebuttals from the proposition and opposition. Of course, we heard from the opposition, them more or less leading with a moral case in terms of us having to do this to have real effects and protecting our environment and our society. And the proposition for this topic really leading with it being at the source, the root of the issue, not being on the shores of our country, but rather the root. Where is it starting from? Where is the pollution problem starting from, and taking it from there? So we've just heard from Mr. Alexander proposition and Mr. Velinor opposition. We now want to provide the opportunity for the judges to deliberate and as well as provide some refreshments for our in-studio audience. We invite you to stay tuned if you're watching on air online. We will be back in just a moment. Meantime, you can take a look at this brief documentary presented for the Marine Litter Management Action Plan development, bringing to light what St. Lucia's current predicament situation is as it pertains to plastic pollution, and more specifically, the plastic pollution that is ending up in our waterways. So take a look.
It starts with a single irresponsible act. This sordid action is multiplied hundreds of times a day in various forms. The results are unsightly, unhealthy, and have long-term impacts on lives and livelihoods. The first man-made plastic was created by Alexander Parks. It was unveiled at the 1862 Great International Exhibition in London. The material called pakisine was organic. Derived from cellulose, that material, once heated, could be molded and retained its shape when cooled. If only Alexander Parks could see how his creation has evolved and how it impacts small islands like St. Lucia.
We really need to get away from the mentality that the government will fix it. We need to also get away from the mentality that if I throw it, I am creating a job for somebody. When we do that, we're creating a death sentence, not for one person, but really a death sentence for all of us.
Our culture is not a culture of proper waste management. Plastic makes up probably about 90% of the litter that is actually generated on the island.
In 2007, the problem of marine litter was officially recognized by the United Nations General Assembly as a matter of global concern. A call for action at the international, regional, and national levels was announced. Fast forward to 15 years later, in 2022, where heads of state, ministers of the environment, and other representatives from the UN member states endorsed a historic resolution to end plastic pollution and forge an international legally binding agreement by 2024. In fact, today, the world is experiencing the fallout of more and more land-based litter being swept into our oceans, settling throughout the water columns, congregating in large cabbage patches, leaking toxins and fragmenting into even smaller particles called microplastics. The work therefore continues when the UN General Assembly declared 2014 to be the year of Small Island Developing States, or SIDS, and as a result, special attention is being placed on threats to the stability of SIDS, with an acute focus on the problem of marine litter.
We are in the stage where we're facing triple crisis. We have the climate change crisis, we have the biodiversity loss crisis, and we have the pollution crisis.
According to the United Nations Joint Group of Experts on the Scientific Aspect of Marine Environment Protection, 60 to 80% of the world's marine pollution comes from land-based sources and activities. The analysis of the data collected in the Caribbean through various beach and underwater cleanup activities conducted by local community groups and government agencies supports this claim. The majority of litter comes from indiscriminate dumping and litter on land, which end up in drains, rivers, and streams flowing towards coastal areas, and also results from direct littering on the beach by beachgoers. The destructive forces of severe storms, wave action, and hurricane-force winds can also move litter from land to sea. The remainder of marine litter comes from the discharging of garbage directly into the sea from water-based activities such as pleasure boats and cruises, fishing and cargo ships, offshore oil rigs and platforms, fishing piers, jetties, and marinas.
If waste is properly managed, properly stored, properly packaged for collection, then the opportunity for animals to interfere with that waste and scatter the waste into drains, into ravines, then you would have less waste getting into the marine environment. There was an issue with plastics getting into the harbor. So our intervention at that time, I believe it was around 2009, is to go into a community, and that community was the Marshall community at the time, and distribute bins to persons living along the river banks so that they would store the waste there in those bins until the collection day comes. Persons who live along river banks, as long as the river is high, it is flowing after heavy rains, tend to dispose of any and whatever they have in the backyard into the river, thinking that it would basically go away. It will leave them and then end up there.
The main type of litter found in the ocean and along coastal areas comprises plastic material from food and beverage containers, children's toys, and other non-biodegradable products. For decades, the ocean has been the office of St. Lucia's dive operators who have recorded the progression from pristine to polluted.
Before the advent of water, bottled water, you would not see a plastic bottle. You would occasionally see a discarded plastic drum, like a fisherman would have it on his boat, and over years, it would crack and he just throw it in the ocean. So occasionally you'll come across that. So that's what has happened. But when when they started to use more plastic on land, then more plastic started to appear on the water. And you would find after rainy periods, that's when you see like an increase in plastics.
Both aquatic and terrestrial animals can be negatively affected by the presence of marine litter. Some species mistake trash for food, which, when ingested, may cause damage to the throat and stomach, and often death.
One of the things they feed on is jellyfish. And it's easy to see a piece of plastic looking like a jellyfish. And turtles in the past have mistaken plastic bags or other plastic items from jellyfish. And they eat it. It gets stuck sometimes in their mouth. Or they ingest it and they're affected by it. The lucky ones, a portion may be hanging out and you can pull it out. Others, they die.
Ghost fishing gear refers to ropes, nets, and other fishing waste that are lost or discarded at sea. It is thought to make up about 10% of marine litter globally. It is particularly deadly when left in the ocean, as it continues to ensnare, maim, and drown marine life for decades. Each plastic item that finds its way into the ocean will eventually disintegrate into millions of plastic fragments less than 5 millimeters in diameter, referred to as microplastics, further degrading the health of the ocean ecosystem. The hazard is caused by these vast quantities of small pieces of degraded plastic floating throughout the water columns, absorbing toxins and later absorbing these toxins into the tissue of animals that have mistaken them for food. There are two principal categories of microplastics. Primary microplastics results from products produced for specific use, such as pre-production pallets and mini urethane beads used in soaps and cleansers. These products may end up in the ocean through spillage, improper waste disposal practices, or sewage treatment facilities which are unable to capture these microplastics and prevent their discharge into rivers and subsequently the ocean. Secondary microplastics are formed from the breakdown of larger plastic material such as beverage bottles, textiles, oil containers, fishing gear, etc. In the Caribbean, marine litter collection data from the annual International Coastal Cleanup Day shows that 67.5% of the items retrieved from coastal areas were made of plastic.
Some of our strange findings would be like mattresses, we get tires, we get vehicle parts, and we've realized that improper waste disposal from our homes is what gets to our land, our waterways. Throughout the areas that we realize that you have the most plastic is areas where persons do direct fishing. So that on our seaports. So right in Bannon area, you get a lot of plastic accumulating in areas where the sea level, the water flows at a different, instead of it flowing outward, most time the water flows inward or in a circle, so it gathers the waste there. We have a lot in the Viewfort area, that also at the Viewfort dock. We have also at the fisheries complex. We've noticed a lot in some of our, the popular beaches, such as Shock Beach. We've done a lot of cleanup, especially at VG and in the Pigeon Island area. And we've noticed that persons who come to recreate along the beach, instead of their plastic or their waste is left on the beach. And this is one of the reasons why they get to the oceans. The Badajoz River has created what you call a carpet of waste product, where the water is hardly flowing that gets to the ocean, or the mangrove, which is what is our buffer from the mainland. And this is causing a big problem, and it's very expensive. The Caribbean Youth Environment Network do not have the resources to actually deal with it. Coca-Cola is one of the biggest funding internationally for international coastal cleanup. And here in St. Lucia, we have worked with them. They fund a lot of our coastal cleanup activities. We've also engaged organizations such as the water companies in St. Lucia and also KFC. Currently, the Ocean Conservancy has added another category to our waste collection database, and it's identifying the organizations, so the bottle, what is written on the bottle, who manufactures the bottle, who manufactures the waste products that we get along, and they are contacted. So the business establishments are contacted into funding some of the cleanup, funding some of the removal of this waste, and also encouraged to reduce some of their waste.
On July 3, 2018, Massey Stores St. Lucia Limited implemented a 25-cent charge for the single-use plastic bags used for bagging groceries at their supermarkets. The company stated that the strategy formed part of its commitment to becoming more environmentally friendly.
We decided to transition our customers away from single-use plastics by doing two things. The first one is we introduced reusable bags as an option to taking single-use plastics in our stores. 2 years in, we saw at least an 80% reduction in the amount of plastic bags that we were giving out for free. So that would be 2 years in, about each year on average, about 6.5 million bags were actually diverted from the landfill. So over the 2 years, about 12 million, and I'm sure that figure has improved year on year.
On the morning of September 18th, 2020, 40 divers started the process of cleaning the marine sites and bayfront at Barons Drive, Maguetut, and the Hummingbird Beach Resort in Soufrière, at the front of Sandals Lotok Resort and the Bay Gardens Reef, close to the VG Beach area in the vicinity of a gully from Le Clery. The focus of the cleanup was waste reduction, particularly of single-use plastics. This activity was coordinated by the Department of Sustainable Development in collaboration with the St. Lucia Dive Association, several hotels, and certified divers. Funding for this project came at the courtesy of Massey Stores St. Lucia Limited. In keeping with the government's promise to continue plans to reduce the dependence on single-use plastic on the island, Parliament passed the Styrofoam and Plastics Food Service Container Prohibition Act on June 11, 2019, which was revised in 2020.
It is really looking at banning the importation, the use, the sale, the manufacturing and distribution of selected single-use plastic food service containers. And in fact, the government is trying to assist this process by having a 0% import duty that has been put forward for persons wishing to import biodegradable and compostable food service containers. And those made out of plant material that can degrade more easily than the plastic that takes a very, very long time to break down.
Consistent with Sustainable Development Goal number 14, Life Below Water, St. Lucia has also adopted a national ocean policy in 2020, which was one of the outcomes maintaining and improving the integrity of the ecosystem. The policy recognizes that pollution, including marine litter, plastic, sewage, oil, and chemicals, affects our transition towards a blue economy, impacting the value of goods and services provided by the ocean, including quality of fisheries and health of marine environment, highly valued by the tourism sector. The Regional Action Plan for Marine Litter for the wider Caribbean region was originally developed in 2007 as a project under the directive of the United Nations Environment Programme through the Regional Seas Programme in response to growing global concerns of litter accumulation in our oceans. Action, including the development of a national marine litter management action plans, are steadfastly undertaken by island states of the wider Caribbean region, with measures to be implemented by each country to address this shared challenge.
And that Marine Litter Management Action Plan also comes with a national source inventory to really see what are the sources of our of pollution, what's the composition, what kind of quantities are we talking about, and how can we best address it. So overall, with this Marine Litter Management Action Plan, including the national source inventory that comes with it, it is looking at having greater knowledge and data and evidence regarding our waste, regarding the pathways, where is our waste coming from, what are the channels and the pathways that they take, and any leakage that we may have. It's also looking at the issue of having better understanding of the quantities and composition of our waste. It's also looking at having greater coherence and cooperation among the various teams and players responsible for waste management, but also synergies among the various policies that exist. As you would appreciate, there are a number of agencies that have some role or the other to play in waste management. So working together and also looking for the opportunities for collaboration to truly enhance the way we deal with waste in St. Lucia.
From production to import, to sale to use, to distribution to disposal, a number of stakeholders have a role to play in effective waste management across public and private sector agencies, community-based organizations, retailers, wholesalers, and everyday people. Marine debris isn't an ocean problem, it's a people problem. This means that we the people, are the solution. Tackling the problem of garbage, including plastic, in the ocean begins on land. Let us all commit to keeping our beaches and oceans trash-free. Reduction in plastic use, especially of single-use disposable products, the collection and recycling of plastics, and appropriate disposal habits can help to decrease the amount of plastic waste that enters the ocean. Sustain public education programs by government, non-governmental organizations, private sector, and community groups can go a long way to contributing to the solution of this major issue. The Marine Litter Management Action Plan will take on a highly collaborative approach and focus on public awareness, outreach programs, tougher laws and policies, and enforcement, which are the building blocks for a successful marine pollution management initiative.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. The documentary on the rationale for the Marine Litter Management Action Plan gave us just enough time for the judges to deliberate. And at this time, we now want to continue with our debate. We have just gone through 2 rounds, the first opening statements by 4 presenters, proposing and opposing teams from the Island Innovation Ambassadors and the Caribbean Youth Environment Network here in St. Lucia. They've been going at it, and all the way down to the second round of the rebuttals, being led by the Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander on the proposing side, as well as Russley Velinor, who came in for the first time in the presentations to make his contribution opposing the topic. Beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We have been seeing your Facebook comments for those of you who are online, and we are very grateful. We thank you so much for participating in this way, hearing from you on your opinions on the presentations, and also a little bit on the topic, what your thoughts are on beach and coastal cleanups. Are they effective? Are they worth it in the fight against plastic pollution? We have been hearing from you, and it's definitely noted for future reference. So at this time, I think it's overdue that we bring on the judge, the head judge, Miss Dr. Mary Louise Felix, who will give an announcement of the results at this time. Good day to you, Dr. Felix. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
How have the presentations gone so far? What are your thoughts?
We believe that they were definitely well researched. We want to applaud all presenters today. It's not an easy thing to do a debate, and especially when you're given a topic and then you need to defend the position that you're given. And it was very evident that there was a lot of research gone into the work, and we really want to congratulate and commend all participants today on a job well done.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And now to present the
results.
The results.
Yes. So what we are going to do, I'm just going to share a little bit the results for the different rounds, so that we have for the first round with Island Innovation Ambassadors, they received a total of 22 points, whilst the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network for the first round received a total of 34 points. For round 2, the Island Innovation Ambassadors received a total of 26 points, whilst the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network received a total of 35 points. And for the rebuttal, the Island Innovation Ambassadors received a total of 15 points, whilst the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network received a total of 17 points. That means in total, when we round up, Island Innovation Ambassadors received a total of 63 points for the entire debate, whilst the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network received a total of 86 points. So that means that our winners today are the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network Group. But as we say, it was a job well done and a fight well fought.
Absolutely. Comrades in environmental matters, environmental advocacy, coming together to bring some light to this situation of plastic pollution for Plastic Free July, also the observance World Oceans Day. I'd like to thank all of the participants. Really, we are all winners. You are all winners in today's debate, and a special thanks to Island Innovation Ambassadors, as well as the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network. Thank you all. And just to make a quick note, you might have noticed that we had 3 presenters on the opposition side and only 2 presenters on the proposition side, and that is because one of the scheduled presenters in the person of Mrs. Malaika Elibox, she was unable to make today's presentation due to unforeseen circumstances. So we do wish her all the best, and of course a special kudos to the team from Island Innovation Ambassadors for being able to on the fly just regroup and ensure that you gave a presentation for today. So thanks to both of you. Let's give a round to both teams today. At this point in time, we just want to quickly make the presentation of the certificates. So at this time, I want to invite our Deputy Permanent Secretary within the Department of Sustainable Development, Mrs. Silka Tobias, to make the presentation and assisted by Ms. Shanna Scott. So first off, we have Ms. Gillian Polius. She was the first on the team making her presentation, so go onto the stage. She was the first on the proposing team. She went first into the ring this afternoon. Ms. Gillian Polius proposing the topic, beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. And one of the points noted was she was able to give a history, a backdrop of, the origins of plastic, and really looking at where we should be focused on and preparing Mr. Alexander, essentially, paving the way for Mr. Alexander. So next we have for the presentation of certificates, Mr. Andrew Ricky Alexander. Who strengthened the point of tapping into plastic pollution from the source.
Yeah.
And for the team who opposed the idea that beach cleanups, coastal cleanups are ineffective in addressing plastic pollution, we now want to call up Mr. Jaden LeBron. Making a youthful presentation, I might add. And not to mention Mr. Alexander in his usual customary exuberance. We know Mr. Alexander to be, a veteran in the debate circles. And now we have Mr. Rinkesh King on the opposing side, backing up Jaden for the first segment of the debate. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Mr. King. And we want to call on Mr. Russley Velinor. Russley came in toward the end to present the rebuttal on behalf of the opposition. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the participants. And now to make the presentation of the trophy to the winners, ultimately, Caribbean Youth Environment Network. We now invite the debaters, all three, who made presentations, to come on stage. Russley. The men in blue.
The tall men in blue.
Mm-hmm. As the Chief Judge indicated, Dr. Felix, thank you, DPS. As the Chief Judge indicated, the presentations were well rehearsed, and special commendations to everyone. But even looking at the ultimate winners, you did put a good fight forward, and special commendation to you. At this point, we come to the end of our debate on plastic pollution. With the topic, beach and coastal cleanups are ineffective in the fight to address plastic pollution. We'd like to thank everyone on television, everyone watching online for tuning in, for supporting. We know the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, they're tuned in. We know Solid Waste Management, they're tuned in. We know that the Island Innovation Ambassadors are tuned in, and we'd like to thank you all so much for supporting the activities of the Department of Sustainable Development for World Oceans Day, as well as Plastic Free July commemorations, this being part of it. We invite you to go onto our social media platforms. On Facebook, it is the Department of Sustainable Development St. Lucia. On Instagram, SUSDevSLU. You could also type in Department of Sustainable Development St. Lucia, and you will still find it on our Instagram, to really keep abreast with what is happening out of the Department of Sustainable Development. It is not just plastics and dealing with plastic pollution. We are facing globally a triple planetary crisis, that is biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution. And of course, the Department of Sustainable Development's work program area spans even beyond that in terms of ensuring that St. Lucia's environment remains safe for us all to live in. I'd like to thank you so much for watching this debate. My name is Jessie Leonce, Information Assistant at the Department of Sustainable Development. It's been a pleasure moderating for you. I hope you all were satisfied. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Once again, we know that Plastic Free July is culminating but the commemorations continue. So you can go onto our Facebook page. We do have ongoing promotions and so on to really bring home to the general public the importance of reducing, reusing, recycling as much as possible. Goodbye, do take care, and stay tuned for more NTN programming.